The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
I honestly don't know how it worked out so perfectly. This was not scheduled this way. Brandon and I decided before the offseason began that we were going to have Wednesday shows. And just numerically, as it turned out, the Clippers of all teams right now had the 18th worst record in the NBA. You can flip that around if you want and go 13th best, depending, pessimist, optimist sort of thing. But we were counting backwards on this whole postmortem thing. And so somehow in this magical world we live in, Brandon, the Clippers fell on your day. So I say to you, from the bottom of my heart, good morning.
Good morning, Dan, and good morning, Kawhi Leonard, wherever you are. I hope I don't get fined. Los Angeles is looking a little bit gloomy today, but it's supposed to be in the 80s the next couple of days, so we will welcome you with open arms.
Yeah, Brandon's working on purchasing the rights to the Claw, right? Aren't you in a bidding war with Steve Ballmer for that?
Correct.
That's right. So I don't know how we got so lucky. Brandon, by the way, noted Clippers fan, one of the proud few. And you guys had a hell of a season. I liked the Clippers this year, which is something kind of new for me. But they were fun. They had such heart. They were a really easy team to root for.
They have been an easy team to root for many, many years. And for those of you that think I jumped on this bandwagon when Chris Paul and Blake Griffin came to the team, not so fast, my friend. I have been a fan of the Los Angeles Clippers since the early 2000s. Back with Corey Maggette, Darius Miles, Elton Brand. It was fine, folks. Earl Boykins was one of my favorite players because of how short he was and how small I was growing up. So that gives you a little behind-the-scenes look at my Clippers fandom. But yeah, a fun year this year. This was one of the better teams, more enjoyable teams to root for. In fact, everybody was really not playing for themselves. It was a team effort, and you didn't hate anybody on the team, which is unusual because there's usually one or two guys. I mean, look at the Lakers, got Lance Stevenson, for example, or maybe, everybody on their roster. And the Clippers, you love everybody, and they just work their asses off. And you saw that when they took a couple of games from the Warriors in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was impressed with them this year. I was not a fan of the Clippers during the Lob City era, and I'm thinking it might have been Chris Paul because now I kind of hate the Rockets. And so I think I don't hate the Pistons. So I feel like the 1-to-1 correlation there follows pretty straightforward. The Elton Brand years, I like that. You guys were pretty good for a stretch in there. It was like this little blip, and then you got real good for a while, and then obviously this year, insane overachieving by all accounts. Although, to be fair, I did have the over on their season win total, so I feel pretty good about it. It felt like one of the easiest ones on the board. I was a little worried when they sent away Tobias Harris, but they just kept finding ways to win. And I feel like I got to give a lot of credit to Pat Beverly, the player you love to hate, because that dude is insane. Like, I think he might actually be clinically insane, and he's an engine. Any team would be very lucky to have Pat Beverly next year.
So it took you, 2 minutes and 15 seconds for you to mention Pat Beverly's name on this podcast?
I love him. I love him.
I had the under, so you disappoint. But
what was the line? I don't know what the line was. Was it like a $1.35?
Yeah, about so.
Okay.
When you introduced the Clippers, I figured you'd maybe bring in Pat Beverly right there. I mean, you're already sending out tweets, wondering where he's going to end up because of how excited you are to draft him. So clearly, this is a man crush of Dan.
Yep, Pat Bev Watch 2019 is in full effect. Okay, so over the course of the entire year, and we'll dig into the fantasy stuff here right now. First things first, at BD Marcus on Twitter if you want to give Brandon a follow. I'm at Dan Besbris. This is Fantasy NBA Today, a Hoop Ball and Hawaiian Isles Kona coffee presentation. Patrick Beverly, obviously drinking his fair share of coffee over the course of the year. That dude is wide awake in every basketball game. He should go to HawaiianIsles.com, get some better Joe in his system. He finished the year as number 127 in 9-cap, but that doesn't tell the story, and it's another reason that I love him so much going into next year, because I feel like maybe people didn't notice that the first half of the year he was atrocious and probably not healthy, and the second half of the year he was awesome. His fantasy game was amazing. I could cavil on this podcast for the next 30 minutes about Patrick Beverley, and I might very well do so, but I know you agree. He's a great guy to own in 9-cat.
Yeah, he was a guy that you were keeping an eye on early on in the season when you do your nightly team notes.
Oh, yeah. What the hell? I already forgot what I called those things. Tweet storms? Is that what
Tweet storms. There you go. Yep. I forgot the name as well, which is why I was dodging around it. Well done.
It's been like a month and a half. That's way too far back for any of us to remember.
I know. It's been a long break here. But with Beverly, he was the guy that was helping out in every category. I mean, he was giving you rebounds, giving you assists. He was getting steals and blocks. He was shooting a fairly high percentage, which was weird as well for a guard. But part of it was that he finally got a spot in that lineup where he was happy and wasn't really relied on too much, because they did end up going to that 3-guard lineup with Shamet and SGA and with Beverly, and that seemed to work really well. And so, yeah, he was really good. And I know you're wondering where he's going to end up next year. I would be surprised if he's anywhere else besides for the Clippers. He and Lou Williams get along really, really well. And he has already said multiple times that it would be very hard to leave Lou. And I could see him wanting to stay here and see this one through. But the question is, how much will he ask for? If you look at what you think he should get, I mean, he made $5 million this year.
That's nothing. That's like nothing.
I wouldn't be surprised if some team tries to give him more, a stupid team like the Suns. But there's no reason for a team like the Suns to give him that because they're a team that's not going to win this year. So you would think it would be a guard that, I mean, a team that needs a guard. I just don't know which team would need that guard to put them over the top. And I think he's made enough maybe in his career where he'd be happy taking less money to stay with the Clippers.
They should do whatever they can to keep him. I believe they can re-sign him, and it doesn't... I know it would sort of impact their salary cap, but I'm pretty sure that he's a guy they could re-sign to go over it, if I understand the numbers correctly, right? Because he was on the team. So
looking at Basketball Reference, he was signed using their bird rights. So I'm assuming based on that he has the ability to go over.
Yes, I'll admit, though, there may be something going on there that I don't fully understand. The Suns are an interesting note you brought up, and we could play this game of, like, where are they going? They tried to do it last year with Trevor Ariza, bring in a veteran to try to teach the young guys how to play harder.
It's stupid.
I don't know if it... I mean, if anybody could make it work, it would be Beverly, right? Like,
he's not going to be happy, though. I mean, he doesn't want to sit there and lose every single night.
No. And they would still, although they'd be significantly better with even just one guy on the team playing good defense, and that would be... The Clippers should bring him back. I mean, he was the engine this year. You put him with... an even more talented roster. Obviously we don't know who's coming in on this team. They've got the cap availability. We already made the Kawhi joke right at the outset here. You put Pat Beverly on a team with some really talented guys around him, he could do a lot of damage. I would love to see him back in LA. We know what his role was. It would seem like it would be hard to take much of that role away unless they signed a superstar point guard. And the second half of the season, or effectively post-All-Star break, he averaged 30 minutes a game, only 9 points. That's a number that I think is going to frighten a lot of people, but you guys know how little I care about points. 1.8 3-pointers, over 6 rebounds, almost 5 assists, 1.1 steals, 0.7 blocks from your point guard on, like you said, 45% shooting, which is weird because he pretty much only takes 3-pointers. 82% at the free throw line and only 1.3 turnovers a game. He was number 52 in 9-cat after the All-Star break. So I'm on Pat Bev watch. There are a lot of places he could go where I would draft him earlier than most, and he's probably going to be one of my first targets into no man's land. But I had to start with Pat Beverly because everybody knows how much I love him as part of my old man squad.
Yeah.
The best player on the Clippers this year, from a fantasy perspective, well, it was close for a while before they traded Harris, but after Tobias Harris left town, it was a runaway. Danilo Gallinari, number 30 in 9-cat this year. He played 68 games, which is about 60 more than I think anybody expected. And he was awesome all season long. Field goal percent through the roof. He's always been a fantastic free throw percent guy. Scoring, three-pointers, rebounding. What a year. Can he stay this healthy again?
No. And these two guys actually go hand in hand with Beverly and Gallinari, strangely enough, because, like I mentioned, Beverly was rolling as that third guard. If you bring in Kawhi, all of a sudden you're probably not starting Beverly unless you have Kawhi as your 4. Well, if you have Kawhi as your 4, that means that Gallinari's probably not around because you look and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's not going anywhere. He's going to be starting at point guard. Landry Shamit's not going anywhere. He's going to be starting at shooting guard. So then we're talking about Beverly coming off the bench, where he was not great this season coming off the bench because that's more of a usage role for Lou Williams and Montrez. So you look at Gallinari and you wonder, well, A, is he going to stay healthy? B, is he going to be there next year? Because he's got $22 million as a hit to their salary cap. So if they're able to find a taker for him, then they open up several max slots and they can bring in a Kawhi and they can bring in a KD. Is it going to happen? Probably not. But they do go hand in hand, Beverly and Gallinari. But if Gallinari stays in the team, I think his fantasy value really does depend on who they bring in because they're going to bring in somebody. I'd be stunned if they don't bring in anybody whatsoever, and it's probably going to be a small forward. So that's the question is, how much does his value tank if they bring in somebody like a Jimmy Butler, or hopefully not, or a guy like Kawhi Leonard? I mean, his usage is going to be less, and I don't think he's going to be as good, and I don't think he's going to stay as healthy. So I think he's going to end up going overdrafted. But you will have your leagues where he's the top guy available on Yahoo, and he's sitting there for a couple of rounds because people are afraid to take him, and you can go ahead and take that flyer.
I might, but it's going to come down quite a bit to what his ADP looks like, and I honestly have no idea because he was drafted in the 100 plus range this last year. Everybody was petrified, and rightfully so. And I was targeting him in a number of spots, and every single one I waited basically one round too long. Someone grabbed him right before I could get him. I just I rolled the dice. I'm sure he'll stick around a little bit longer. Didn't pan out. He finished it, like we said, at number 30. Is that where he ends up going? I doubt it. I still feel like people are going to think there's that injury bug. And, I mean, there is. Even the little things knock him out for 10 to 15 games.
I would guess he's ranked somewhere around 60 to 65.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because there's that, looking at the totals for him, he played 68 games, so his total were actually not that far behind his per game number. I think he was in the mid to high 30s on a totals basis. But I think when you sort of balance the fact that he could have a top 40 per game number with the expectation he's probably only going to play about 60 games next year, you're probably right. You put a 1 or 2 round sale on Gallo. And I think in Roto leagues, I think I'd probably take him in the 60s or 70s. Even if he only plays 60 games, those numbers add up. In a head-to-head league, I don't think I'm touching him almost regardless of where he's getting drafted. There's just, I know he almost made it through the whole year. 68 games is okay, but that you just, in head-to-head leagues, you just can't take guys that aren't on the floor. And you and I have talked about this a number of times.
I was just about to say that. This goes back to our conversation from a couple of weeks ago where you draft Gallinari, you're drafting a guy that's most likely going to miss games. And are you okay with that? That's the question. And in most leagues, I'm not. I mean, I know for yours, when you have those max number of games that can be played at what position, that's fine if a guy misses, 10 games or so. Correct me if I'm wrong. But in head-to-head leagues where he could cost you 3 or 4 matchups, and that's the difference between you getting first or third or fourth and the playoff positioning, I don't love it. And it's tough because he's got the ability to do a lot. I mean, you just look at his last couple of games. Against the Lakers, he went 27 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks.
Yeah.
And 3 threes. I mean, that's huge. You don't get that from that many players. But he's got to stay on the floor. And, I mean, he did do a lot to take care of himself. Give credit to the Clippers, by the way. They did a really nice job, for the most part, keeping everyone healthy this season. So we'll see if that's able to carry over.
Yeah, it's funny, too, that when we look at Gallo, and we're both, I think we can agree this was, by all accounts, a wildly healthy and successful season, and still he missed 14 games. It's a very different bar with Gallo than it is for most players in the NBA, where if you're like, fully healthy season, you're probably talking 78 to 82 games for most guys. For Gallo, it's like, did he clear 65?
Well, he played 21 the year before.
Yeah.
So that's why we're talking about that. I mean, you look at that. Look at the last several years. 68 this year, 21, 63, 53, 59, did not play torn ACL. And then 71, 43, 14, 48, 62. He hasn't played 80 games since 2009.
Yep.
I mean, I just don't want him anywhere near my team. As much as I like his fantasy game, 14 games is a lot to miss, and I don't love it.
Yeah, and that's a good number. That was a good number. That was a great
number. I mean, we're talking about him as a number 30 guy.
Yep, and only 14 games. It's so funny the way it's just a different scale for guys that are injury prone like that. By the way, in addition to the fact you mentioned he hasn't played 80 games since 2009, he hasn't really gotten close. The 70-game 2012 season, 71 game, was as close as he got. He hasn't even. That's the only time he's hit 70 in his career prior to that 2009 season. I think the year he got traded, he was at 62. Wasn't one of those a lockout season? I can't remember which one it was. So maybe that was a better percentage. Regardless, it's just a different bar, because then you look at a guy like Montrezl Harrell, who was number 68 in 9-cat on a per-game basis, but played in all 82 games this year. That's a big deal.
I'd rather have Trez.
That's a huge deal.
It's not even close. I'd rather have Trez.
Can he replicate this going forward? It seems like, yes. He and Lou, they're both on contract for next year. Why would any of that chemistry change?
And he played 76 the year before that, by the way. So clearly this is a guy that has shown the ability to stay healthy, and he's still growing. I mean, he's still a young kid. I mean, you got to realize that. This is only going to be his 5th season in the NBA. I mean, you look back, by the way, that trade for Chris Paul was just an absolute steal, getting Trez, getting Lou, and getting Beverly. I mean, those 3 guys have been huge to what the Clippers did. But yeah, why can't he step forward? I mean, you look at every single year, he's increased from 3.5 to 9 to 11 to 16.5. Why can't he be an 18-point and 8-rebound guy?
The only reason I'll play devil's advocate here, and I don't actually believe in what I'm saying, but I'm going to say it just for the sake of decent radio, is because he's such a high-energy guy. And there has to be some cap to how long you can go on the floor at that clip, right?
Well, that's how you come off the bench. That's why you don't start. They're not asking him to play 35 minutes a game.
Right, and I don't know that he could.
Right. I mean, the biggest comparison was probably Kenneth Faried and how good Faried was initially.
True.
So the question is, and then Faried obviously fell off a cliff.
Yeah, Montrez is a better defender, too.
I think this is completely different. I think Trez just has more of an offensive game. He's got a partner they can play with in Lou Williams. I don't think Faried had that as much. Faried relied a lot more on offensive rebounds and being that animal on the glass. Harrell is more of a guy that can just do stuff all over.
So I suppose the big question with Montrezl Harrell is there a universe where he could get his 64% free throw shooting from last year up closer to 70? Because that's the way that a guy of his stat set leaps from top 70 to top 50, top 40. A few more minutes on the court probably wouldn't do the trick. That free throw number, if you could eliminate the big hole, he could be an absolute monster. I'm not certain. I mean, the body of work so far basically says he's probably a 60-something% free throw shooter, but we've seen crazier things, like DeAndre Jordan and his number going up 20%, and Andre Drummond from 40-something to 60-something. Who's to say that Montrez couldn't get from 64 to 70? That turns him into an easy top 50 guy.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this last week with a couple different guys and improving their free throw percentage, and we looked at the college numbers versus what they did in the last couple of years and the improvement. There hasn't been as much improvement on the Trez angle. Right. He was about 60% in college, and then he went 52, 63, 62.5, 64. I think he is what he is. He'll probably end up at about 64, 65%. And I don't think you're going to get much better from him. And it's unfortunate, but I mean, you also are getting a field goal percentage over 60%.
He's very good in everything else. A steal, 1.3 blocks, that combined 2.2 in the defensive numbers. You could potentially see his rebounding come up from 6.5 a game. That could get into the 7s.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
I got no reason why not.
Yeah, I mean, you can see his minutes going up maybe 1 or 2 minutes, and 1 or 2 minutes all it takes for him to get one more rebound.
Yeah, and Gallo missing a bunch of games would also contribute in that regard.
Exactly. I think it's tough to predict the Clippers because you don't know who's going to be there.
You really have no idea.
It really is tough because, I mean, you can look at a guy like SGA, and you can say for certain that he's going to take that step forward, and he's a guy that eventually could be very fantasy friendly. I mean, he's a guy that we were watching earlier in the season, and he had his stretches, obviously. But with his length, he has the ability to rebound, and obviously with his incredible vision, helps you in the assist categories, and his great length will obviously help you get some steals and some blocks. So he has the ability to get you a very fantasy-friendly game, and obviously in head-to-head as well. And he showed the ability to step back and shoot the 3-ball, which is something he needs to continue to improve. But the question is, how much of an offensive load will he have, and who will be there with him? Yeah. You know he's going to take that step forward, though.
Yeah, it really does come down to, is somebody going to come in and soak up half the usage on the team? Those guys, like Gilgeous-Alexander, he's a good example of someone who's going to need more offensive opportunity to take that big step forward. You're going to need the 0.6 threes to get up and over 1. You need the 10.5 points to get to 12 or 13, the rebounds to come up a little, the assists to come up a little bit, and you sort of have to be, you got to be handling the ball. You got to be involved for that to happen. And I know you mentioned Jimmy Butler or Kawhi or KD or whoever. They're plenty of targets. I don't, man, this free agency is going to be crazy. Whoever it is that comes in, if it's one of those big name guys, that's going to push a lot of these other dudes out a little bit. It's going to hurt the guys that need the ball in their hands. And so we'll obviously have to reassess here after the first week of July. There's no other way to say it.
But it is positive, by the way, that SGA shooting near 48%. He's 80% from the free throw line. He has the ability, obviously, to get those rebounds and assists. He has already over a steal per game. He's about a half a 3 per game. I would expect that to go up closer to 1.5. Probably not as high as 1.5, but still closer to 1. So clearly the fantasy game is there. It's just about getting the minutes and getting the confidence.
Yeah, and he was number 145 this year on a per-game basis. It's very easy to make the jump from 140s to top 100. That's where everybody's bunched up. You just need to do one thing a little bit better. This was my Darren Collison and Thad Young argument from last year. It was like, these guys are both number 150. It's going to take about 1 week of good basketball for them to leap into the top 100, so hang on. And now we just have to... like you said, it's kind of a tough team. You're going to have to do a lot of assessing of who's actually going to be doing stuff next year. And like we said, Gallo, Lou Williams, Montrez, SGA, Shamet, Jerome Robinson, and Bakersfield, California product, Tyrone Wallace, I think are the only guys on salary for next year.
Yeah, I think Thornwell, too.
Oh, Sindarius Thornwell. It's a sweet name.
Yeah, and I'm assuming they'll try and bring back Zubats.
I guess. I mean, I don't know. Is he worth? I guess it depends on do they end up signing somebody like a Vooch or a Boogie? Do they target a big man?
Yeah, I'd be surprised, by the way, if they go that route.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's the right fit.
It doesn't seem like a Doc type of move. Bringing in a center that commands that much usage in a guy like Boogie, and Vucevic too, for that matter. Yeah, but we'll see.
I agree. I don't think they're targeting a big man, but who the hell knows at this point? That early July is going to be absolutely positively insane. Thoughts on the finals before we wrap this thing up? I can't do a podcast where there's actually finally a finals game happening tonight.
We're 2 for 2.
Yeah, can you believe it? Oh man, I nailed it.
2 for 2. Did you actually do it, by the way?
No, I've been too damn busy. I know. I'm so stupid. I planted my flag in it and everything. We spent so much time last week like, well, what if you're wrong? Who cares if I'm wrong? I'm going to be ballsy. And then I nailed it, and it didn't help me at all. But hopefully it helped somebody else. I got no idea, by the way. In terms of, I was relatively confident last week that there would be a stretch where the Warriors would be kind of with their pants down and Raptors could take advantage of that. And then I figured there's no way the Warriors would lose 2 in a row. And so the second one was an easy prediction after I went out on a limb with the first. That was like, it was a little bit of kind of a correlated suggestion. I don't have a clue what's happening tonight. I don't even know who's playing tonight still. Who's healthy?
That's the question. Let me bounce this off you. The line right now, I'm looking at Yahoo, so correct me if I'm wrong if it's different on betting sites, is Golden State -4.5.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too.
So you can look at that 2 ways. One is that if Clay misses out, then holy hell, Toronto +4.5, and the only player that's actually on the court is Steph and Boogie. I mean, those are the only 2 guys that you're afraid of. I mean, that's amazing. Then you go with the other side, and that's the Vegas side, where Golden State's -4.5 with all these question marks. Clearly, they know something we don't, and that's usually when you go the opposite way and you take Golden State in the points and you just hope and pray. I'm curious what side you go on, because normally the very public side would be Toronto +4.5, I assume.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, before you find out if Clay's going to play or not. But the Vegas side is Golden State.
So as a sort of a blanket, I almost never bet a game when I don't know who's playing in it. But you are absolutely correct in all of the other stuff, which is when guys are out, usually the line swings too far because folks hear about it, bet on the opposite side, and so it actually moves the number even farther. Like they might move the number, for instance, when we found out that KD had no chance of playing, I think that number came down from 6 to 4.5, or from 6 to 5, and then my guess is additional money came in on the Raptors and brought it from 5 down to 4.5. So there's this extra little push, and it creates what's known, and I've talked about it a little bit on the show in the past, as the injured star theory, which suggests that when a team is missing its superstar, everybody else plays harder on that team, and the other team has either a slight letdown or kind of the wrong game plan. You know, they plan for one guy to be there that's not. That's a little bit more of a regular season theory. In the postseason, everybody's playing crazy hard every night. So I don't know that there's these emotional angles that you can bet into right now. So for me, until I know who's actually playing in this game, I am not touching it with no matter how long of a pole you handed me. I'm not using it to touch this ball game. I'm petrified of it. But I think if anything right now, it would be the Golden State side.
Yeah, I think so too. It's the first game at Oracle. And normally the role players play better at home. So you would think that favors Golden State, but at the same time, has this been a series where you really feel confident in a team winning by 5 or more? I mean, I don't know. It's really tough. There are signs, however, that Kawhi is kind of slowing down a bit. And there's been a lot of talk about this box and one crap. And
yeah, way too much talk of it.
You got to think that at some point Kerr is going to do something to adjust. And Golden State has done well adjusting recently. So I don't know. Strangely, I'm on that Golden State -4.5 side, because what you're getting with that is you're getting if Clay's healthy, that line goes up, I would assume. And you're getting the home team. So I don't know.
Yeah,
it's tough.
It's that side, if anything, but for me, it's probably nothing. There's still too many.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Same here. And because the other side of me thinks, okay, Toronto takes this game. KD comes back for Game 4. They win Game 4, and all of a sudden we got ourselves a 3-game series.
The finals are, if nothing, interesting.
Mm-hmm. This has been a good series so far. I mean, There's good storylines. That's one thing. I mean, for all the years that we've had LeBron and the Warriors, I mean, there are plenty of storylines here. I mean, where the hell's Kawhi going to go? Apparently now he's bought a house in Toronto. By the way, why would he do that during the finals? I mean, clearly it's going to come out. I don't understand. That doesn't make any sense to me, because now there's a lot of speculation surrounding him and where he's going to be when people were talking about it, but not this much.
I don't understand. There was the rumor that came out like a couple days before the housing thing, was that he was considering the signing the 1-and-1 deal basically in Toronto, and then buying a spot. I mean, does it actually mean anything? I don't know. What LeBron had a house in L.A. for 7 years before he actually signed with the Lakers.
I don't think L.A. counts, by the way.
Yeah,
when anybody buys a house in L.A., by the way, his house is not in L.A., Kawhi's. His house is near San Diego. And as we know, as we discussed on the infamous Traffic podcast, it's very far away to go from point A to point B.
Yes,
so let's be real here. San Diego, on a good day, is 2 hours away from Los Angeles. On a bad day, is 4 to 5 hours away from Los Angeles.
Yeah,
so,
I have a wonderful story about a San Diego to L.A. drive that is probably not podcast worthy.
Yeah,
but
so get out of here, basically, with that, is what I'm trying to say. If he truly did buy a place in Toronto, I said all along that once he beat Philadelphia that he was going to stay in Toronto, because you've made it to the finals here after beating Milwaukee now with Toronto. Why would you leave a team that just made the finals when there's no guarantee to make it with the Clippers?
No.
Unless you really don't like Toronto.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to start to believe this stuff about him staying as well. They babied him, They managed his loads at all damn season long. What was the final number on games played for Kawhi in the regular season? It was like low 60s this year, right?
Let me see. On that note, by the way, the question is, if Kawhi does stay, then I don't know if these are going to go in the correct order. Does that then open up other teams to maybe think, hey, PG stayed, Kawhi stayed, maybe we can convince Anthony Davis to stay if we trade for him?
Yeah, very true.
He played 60, by the way.
60, not even low 60s, just the 60 singular version. I don't know why you'd leave a team that basically showed, hey, we can have a perfectly fine regular season record with you playing 70 some odd % of our games. We're gonna take care of you. We're gonna get you ready for the playoffs. We got a shot to make the finals every year, as long as you can try to clamp down on Giannis. Like what? There is no great reason for him to leave other than perhaps the lure of being closer to home. So, as long as it may take to get from San Bernardino. Wait, now, yeah, Kawhi's from San Bernardino, right? San Bernardino?
No, he's from San Diego.
I thought he was San Bernardino County. No?
No, I don't think so. Checking right now. I'm pretty sure because he went to San Diego State. So I'm pretty sure he's from that. I could be wrong.
We got to find out where he grew up. That's either way. It's a long ass drive.
His high school was in Moreno Valley. Where's that?
I think that's east.
Martin Luther King, also Riverside. So
okay.
So
Riverside County, not San Bernardino.
Yeah,
a little south of that.
He also played his college ball at San Diego State. So.
Yeah. So that's, yes, that's a little bit of a haul to L.A., but it's a lot closer than Toronto. So that would be the only reason that.
Very true.
Although you may be right, you might be able to drive to L.A. from Toronto in about the same amount of time. If he gets the Kobe copter, he could get in and out of Riverside County to Los Angeles.
Well, then you look, by the way, if you're Kawhi, just quickly, we'll do this quickly because I haven't really looked at this, so it's interesting to me. After this year, this coming year, the 2019-2020 season, Toronto has a ton of money because nobody's on their books. Next year's the last year of Kyle Lowry, $33 million. Marc Gasol, you've got to assume, will opt into his player option for $25.5. So this will be his final year. You have Kawhi. Serge Ibaka's in his final year of $23 million. Siakam's in his final year of $2 million. So he'll obviously get a ton.
Holy crap! Are you serious?
Yeah, he's at 2.3 this coming season.
Who's left on their roster 2 years from now?
For 2020, 2021. There's Norman Powell for 10, and OG Anunoby team option for 3.8, and that's it.
Oh my God! They'll have $14 million of salary.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I guess that could be argued as both a good and a bad thing, right? Like you're not going to sign there long term because there's nobody else there. You might be alone. You might be Will Smith in the last episode of Fresh Prince. Kawhi might just be standing in the middle of the arena all by himself, and then Carlton's going to run by with his pants down.
Oh man, just in the middle of that living room.
That episode made me cry. Actually,
I remember that episode.
Yeah.
I sadly remember that.
Yeah, I cried a little bit. TV doesn't get me like that, but there's something about Will Smith's eyes, man. They're so empathic. You just feel what he's feeling. I didn't realize that Toronto had nobody on the books. That's insane.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either until I just pulled that up. So then you wonder, is he going to be there because he can craft his own team? or is he going to leave because he has no idea who's going to be there?
So that's why the 1-1 makes even more sense. He can opt into his second year if he finds out they bring some guys back, or he can be like, all right, well, you guys are blowing it up. Peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's staying, isn't he?
Probably.
Yeah, he's probably staying. Finals continue tonight, and then Game 4 will be sometime in late July, I believe, is when that one's scheduled. So we'll have plenty of time to talk about it. Brandon Marcus, Clippers man. Clipper Brandon, you got to start dressing the part.
Clipper Brandon. Clipper Dale follows me on Twitter, by the way.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'll take that.
Yeah.
And so did Caron Butler back in the day, too.
Oh, Caron Butler, solid.
Yeah, really random fun follow. I actually happened to go through my messages yesterday, and I think 5 years ago I DM'd him asking for tickets.
Oh, well done, good sir. Oh, man. Add BD Marcus on Twitter. I'm at Dan Besbris. Tomorrow, Neil Rochlani. I don't even know who his co-host is tomorrow. He's keeping us in the dark on that one. They've got the Pacers. That'll be a fun one. Adrian and Coach, they've got the Spurs wrapping it up on Friday. That'll be the week here on Fantasy NBA Today. Have a lovely Wednesday. Enjoy the game. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.